Okay, first of all, if you go on to assignments and tests on GCE Learn, you will be able to see under assignments and tests there are two new folders here. At the moment, the quiz folder is hidden from you. So you can see that on my screen because that's the lecturer's view. But if you want to have a look at the quizzes, I'll be opening them in a short time. And you'll be able to take a mock quiz right now just to become a little bit more familiar with how quizzes work on GCE Learn. I don't think you've used quizzes in any other modules yet. Anyone? Not yet. So it's probably a new thing for you. You haven't done that. So what I've done is I've created a short quiz of 4 questions only, which is a mock quiz that's not available to you just now. I'll make it open in a moment. Once you've done that, probably after the lecture that I'm finishing today, or maybe during the lecture if you have the time towards the end, I will open the other one. I'll show you how it looks like. So basically there'll be 2 quizzes there on the screen. You can't see it on your laptops. You'll have to see on the screen here. So I'll go back again. Under assignments and tests, you will now see 2 new folders. One says quizzes and the other one says coursework 2 individual reflective log. This individual reflective log is open right now. And of course, the third folder was coursework 1 team report. We don't need that anymore. You've all submitted your assignments, which has been an amazing experience for us as lecturers, because a class of 925 students and hardly any extensions and non-submissions, which is an amazing thing. I've never seen that in my 10 years of experience here. So well done, everybody. It's really amazing just to see that. And all the lecturers have the same views about it as well. Okay, so that's one folder, coursework 2. You can see that right now. There is a set of slides over there that gives you all the details about what you need to write under each question. Okay, I'll come back to that in a moment. The second folder that you will see, which is not visible to you right now, is called quizzes. Under these quizzes, you will see 2 quizzes there. Number 1 is a mock quiz, and the second one is the actual quiz, quiz 1 based on carbon literacy training. The mock quiz I'll open just now in a moment, that you can see an attempt. And quiz number 1, you can see here it says item is hidden from students currently. And that's because I wanted you to take the mock quiz before you can start attempting. The quiz 1 will have 10 questions and they're all based on carbon literacy training. So it should not be new for you at all. You've all done the assignments. These questions should be like really, really easy for you. It shouldn't take you maybe more than 2 minutes to 3 minutes to really answer all those 10 questions. I would really recommend though that you please, even though they're very easy questions, something that you've all read about and written about in your assignment, take the time to read the multiple choice answers. There might be some confusing ones there. And so therefore, you might want to read them properly and then select your answer. There's no problem with time. You can do that. But the one advice that I'm giving you is that please do this quiz 1 in one sitting. You can do that anytime between now and 16th of December. Absolutely no problem at all. You can choose to do it on the 15th of December if you want it. But whenever you do it at the same time. It'll take you maybe 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 4 minutes, whatever, but it shouldn't be too long at all. But do it in one sitting, and that's my advice to you. Because it might be that you've done 4 questions and then you kind of go out for a cup of tea or something and come back and then you see that the questions are not there anymore. So you'll have to restart. So make sure that you are attempting all the quiz questions at the same time. Okay. Do you want to take the mock quiz now and then we go on to the coursework 2 description? Just as a practice, let's do that. Okay, just give me a second. I will open this. Right, okay, if you go and everybody, if you go on to assignments and tests on GCE Learn, and if you go on to the quizzes folder, which is the top folder under that, you will be able to see the mock quiz. Do not start it yet. Just tell me if you can see it. You can. Can you click on mock quiz, please? And read. Are you able to read any instructions over there? What does it say? Anybody please help me with that? Oh, perfect. Right. This test can be saved and resumed later. Due date. Yeah, okay. So now if you've read the instructions, if you can please click on begin. Okay. Some really simple questions just for practice, really. So this is how a quiz looks like on GCE Learn. It will not give you the correct answer right now. It will wait until the time I've set, which is 29th of September, 5 p.m. tonight. Okay. For the main quiz, I've set the time for 16th of December for 5 p.m. So we'll be able to see the answers, but only after the 16th of December once everybody has attempted the questions. Okay. My recommendation again is this should be quite easy for you all to do it by yourself. So do not collaborate. It's an individual piece of work, not a collective teamwork. So please do not collaborate and answer the questions. It may be that you both might be wrong. So don't take that chance. My understanding is that these questions are pretty straightforward and easy, and you should be able to answer it. The mock questions are quite, I mean, I've just put them, some questions. Are you able to access? Great. Okay. So how long did that take you to answer those 4 questions? Less than that, probably. Yeah. Yeah. So it's pretty straightforward and simple. So just imagine the actual quiz will have 10 questions, and you should be able to see that. Can somebody tell me once you've finished the 4 questions, how does the screen look like? Can I have a look at somebody's screen? Have you done that? Yeah. Okay, take your time. No rush, no rush. Have you submitted? Oh, so sad. Okay. Yeah, that's an important point, though. Make sure, everybody, that wherever you are doing this quiz, you have good, strong Wi-Fi available to you. Your laptop has enough battery in the thing. What does it say? Click OK to. So if I click OK here, is that okay? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Oh, it does actually give you the points. All right. I'll have to figure something out. Okay, anyway, so if you have done the mock quiz, then that's, I believe you'll find it pretty straightforward and simple. I'm hoping that if you have clicked on OK at the end, it actually does give you your score, but I'm hoping that the first quiz will not. I'll go back and double check it, but this quiz will be available to you, quiz number 1, at a later stage in the evening today, once I've done the second lecture from 3 o'clock to 5 p.m. Okay, now let's go back to coursework 2 briefing. Everybody, please pay attention. Does anyone have any questions about the mock quiz? Very simple and straightforward, do you think? Yes? One of those questions is also part of the quiz. So in case you got it wrong, just read that again. Okay, you would probably know which question I'm talking about. Right, okay, so let's go on to coursework 2 now. In the first week of our teaching, I had given you, these slides are available on GC Learn, by the way, so people who are sitting on this side who can't see the screen, please just open that on your laptops, and I believe you've already done that. Now, what you've done so far, if you go back to GC Learn and click on assignments and tests, I had provided, of course, a 16-minute lecture that we had recorded in week number 2 when I talked about all the assignments. I had also given you an assessment briefing guide. That was a broad guide which has all the questions and the dates and everything else. Okay, so if you are not sure about what the questions were, you can always go back and refer to that and open them. So I'll just open them for you just in case you haven't had a chance to look at it. So you had this assessment brief. Everybody pay attention, please. You had this assessment brief with all the dates on it. Of course, we extended the date for this assignment to the 20th of November. So you had the question 1, assignment 1, and all that you had to do in terms of the questions. And then you had assignment number 2, which is an individual reflective log. So remember, this is an individual piece of work, not a team work anymore. So just everybody submits their own assignment. It's a marked assessment. It's a coursework, not an exam. The submission date is 16th of December 2024, 5 p.m. and the weighting is 40%. Okay, so 40% for your coursework 1 as a team, 40% for your coursework 2, and 20% for your quizzes. So you got 20 questions in your quizzes, and you got, you just, whatever you score out of 20 is your score for that particular assignment. Okay, now for coursework 2, you got 3 questions to answer. And these 3 questions have been given to you already. Define reflective learning and its importance in learning about sustainability, and define and describe any one of the theories of reflection. Now, I have also created these slides that I'm talking about. And this is where we'll try and kind of summarize what we need to do. So, coursework 2 briefing. You already know this information. 16th of December. Please make a note. And there are 3 questions that you must answer in this. Okay. Define reflective learning and its importance in learning about sustainability, and define and describe any one of the theories of reflection. Now, this is quite a short question. Okay. In this short question, roughly about 20% of your mark. We're not really expecting you to do a detailed explanation of things. All we need you to do is define what reflective learning is, and then talk about how is reflective learning useful for sustainability related learning or education. I've provided some inputs in the coming slides. And then you talk about one of the 3, not all of them. So, but you'll have to read about the 3 of them, and I've given some information about them in my slides here today. Talk about which one of the 3 most popular theories of reflection, which is Gibbs' reflective cycle, Kolb's learning cycle, and Moon's levels of learning, would be useful for you to do a quick kind of analysis and evaluation of your experience of learning. So reflecting back on the last, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks or so that we've completed so far, trying to think about what can be done next. So creating an action plan. So think about all of these 3 and then select any one. Okay, select absolutely anyone, doesn't matter which one you choose, but describe it. Okay, in short sentences. Provide a diagram if you can, if you find one. For the Gibbs one, you'll definitely find it. For the Kolb's and Moon's, there might be some diagrams available out there, but it doesn't matter if they're not. But you have to describe the various stages of them, and we'll come to the stages in a moment. Question number 2, very important. Using one of these, whichever you've chosen to describe in question 1, use that to reflect upon the process of your team working. Now, I know that many of the teams work very well, okay, and a majority of the teams worked really well. But there are some teams who had some issues. What were those issues? And it's important that you reflect upon them, because in the entirety of your degree, many of your assignments will be group assignments, team assignments. You will be allocated to teams, you'll be assigned to teams. Now, why is it important? Why do we do that in this university or in any university? Why do we actually have teamwork? And when you go out and work in the industry, you won't have a choice, number 1, so you can't select who your teammates would be. Number 2, inevitably, each one of you will be working in teams. There is no organization that actually lets people work on their own. So every person works as part of the team. You don't choose the team, but you still have to work with the team to be able to fulfill the goals of the organization and your own personal goals. So if you're thinking that teamwork is something that I don't like, I think naturally the instinct might be that, yes, we don't like to work teamwork. I'm relying on my own skills and ability, and I can do the work much more perfectly. And you might have thought about this when you were doing your coursework 1. But it's important that you reflect back on it and think about it. And then create, if you were to do the same assignment, let's take us all back to week number 2, week number 3, when we introduced to you that these are your teams and these are your assignments and this is what you're to do for coursework 1 team report. And if you were put in the same team, what would you do differently this time? Okay, you have to work with the same team, but what would you do differently this time? So that's something that you can create here in question number 2. Pay attention, everybody, please. Question number 3, reflect on how learning in this module overall will help you in being successful in the rest of your degree studies and future employability. Each student must write in the context of their own degree subject. Think about sustainable leadership and being a responsible manager or leader in the future. So how within your own field of investment and risks, or media and journalism, or law, and fashion marketing, branding, international marketing, etc., international business management, what is it that you can do to become a more responsible leader and incorporate sustainability skills that you've learned in those fields? And you can't say that any field or this field is not really connected to climate change or ESG. As we saw last week in the guest lecturer from Swiss Re, he works in the field of insurance and risk, and his degree was in business management. And he's talking about natural disasters and climate change and Storm Milton and Storm Helene, etc. And he's talking about what is the impact on assessment of risks for organizations. How does it impact small insurance companies? And he's told us that many small insurance companies have folded in the last 10 years or 15 years or so. Since Storm Katrina that happened, I think in 2008, um, and these two storms now and many storms over the past few years have devastated the insurance industry in many ways. And so companies like Swiss Re, who actually insure those insurance companies, have to bail them out, or they have to raise their prices or premiums, etc. So there's a huge impact on the insurance industry and the risk assessment kind of skills. So if you're thinking that no, my degrees has got nothing to do with ESG, you got to think again about it. So that question 3 is really about how is that connection made. Okay, I've given you some pointers about what these things are. So first of all, what is reflective learning? So reflective learning is an educational approach where individuals reflect upon and evaluate their experiences, thoughts, and actions to gain deeper insights and improve their future behavior or understanding. So it's really important. There are two aspects here. One is to be able to reflect upon what's happened. And secondly, on the basis of the learning gained from there, you create an action plan about what do we need to do to be able to improve our experience of learning at the same time. Reflective learning involves actively analyzing experiences, identifying lessons learned, and applying these lessons to enhance personal and professional growth. Reflective learning is widely used in education, professional development, and self-improvement practices. We always reflect in the industry. Regardless of whatever industry you are in, we are in the education industry, working in the university, we reflect upon our actions every year. We have to have a formal meeting with our line manager, fill up a form, and write about what have we done in the previous year, what have been the outcomes, and what is it that we do plan to do in the next year, and what are the potential possible actions or outcomes of that. It's a formal activity that we have to do every year, have a discussion with our line manager, and submit that onto a shared kind of portal on GCU Learn or GCU portal, generally speaking. So reflection is a really important activity, something that you must master, something that you can take to your employment in the future. It's really important to do so. Okay, so it's an educational approach. It's a formal, structured approach to evaluating your experiences and creating an action plan in the future. So, of course, what is important here? Self-awareness encourages individuals to evaluate their own thoughts, feelings, and actions. Critical thinking involves questioning assumptions, exploring alternative perspectives, and identifying areas for improvement. It's really important. Identifying or exploring alternative perspectives. A team is not made of, if we take the example of a team is not just made up of an individual. A team is made up of course, number of people within the team, 4, 5, 6 people. Everybody may have different perspectives, different preferences, different priorities. How do you bring them all together? Continuous learning is the main objective, emphasizes learning from past experiences to make better decisions in the future, so that you do not repeat the errors or the mistakes that you've done in the previous experience. And so therefore, continuous learning is a key characteristic of reflective learning. And finally, it's goal-oriented. It's not just for no reason. You're doing reflective practice for a specific reason, and that is to improve upon development of your skills, or aims to identify specific actions for improvement. So, for example, after this 12 weeks is finished, I and my team will sit together and kind of discuss about what is it that we can do differently next year. What have been the experiences? We actually do give out a questionnaire in which we ask students to tell us about what has been the strengths, what has been the weaknesses, how can we improve the module, what can we do differently, how can we change the assessments, etc., etc. We always reflect upon what we do in our modules, in our programs, in our assessments, and that is what makes us do better the next time. We do recognize that the things are not perfect, and you might have recognized probably in the last 10 weeks there are things that you might have liked in terms of content, in terms of lectures, etc. And there might be things that you thought probably this might have been done differently. And that is an absolutely good process of understanding what can be changed. And we do that for all modules and for all programs. And so if you talk to the first year students next year who will be sitting in your spaces and taking this lecture, you might see that their experience might be slightly enhanced than yours. And that is because of the reflective practice that we implement in our own kind of teaching and delivery of programs. Benefits of reflective learning: it provides you deeper understanding. It encourages individuals to engage with experiences at a meaningful level. Improved decision making, because you've learned from your experiences, helps identify strengths and areas of improvement, like I just mentioned. It helps with skill development, promotes adaptability and problem solving skills. Enhanced self awareness. If you can't reflect upon what your experiences have been, you would never be aware of what could be improved. It fosters personal growth by understanding one's behavior and motivations. And finally, it helps with application to practice, especially valuable in professions like teaching, healthcare, and social work, where applying lessons learned to real life scenarios is extremely crucial. In healthcare, in particular, reflective practice is extremely useful. If you talk to any of the nurses, any of the doctors, and any of the senior consultants, you will know that they implement reflective learning and reflective practice on their day-to-day lives. It's really important. If somebody you know in your families or friends who work in the healthcare sector, you will know that they do that all the time. Teachers do this all the time as well. Okay, so there are lots of fields where reflective practice is actively used, and it is being used more and more in a lot more fields now. Now, reflective learning is one thing, but how do we connect this to sustainability? And that is your key question. What is reflective learning, and how can it be used for sustainability education? So reflective learning can play a powerful role in promoting sustainability by encouraging individuals to critically assess their actions, behaviors, and beliefs regarding environmental, social, and economic issues. It fosters a deep understanding of sustainability challenges and empowers learners to adopt more responsible and impactful practices, something that we've already done through our coursework 1. You've all reflected upon what has been happening, and you've then created an action plan for yourself. Now, that action plan could be implemented now. Perhaps maybe some of you have started to do that. And that action plan could be implemented over the next 4 years. It could be implemented in the next 5 years or 10 years' time. But the important thing that we wanted to assess was, do you have the knowledge and do you have the ability to be able to understand the impact of your own actions and then change those actions to reduce that impact on the environment? Okay. So reflective learning for sustainability education could actually involve many different things. As you can see here, there are some of them which I've mentioned here: fostering awareness, encouraging critical thinking, building connections, promoting behavioral change, developing problem solving skills, encouraging systems thinking. Systems thinking is all about interconnectedness of different concepts. Okay, how is the environmental change linked to social development, for example? You might want to think about it in more broader terms. And driving transformative learning. All of these are parts of sustainability education. You might want to pick one or two of them and maybe elaborate a little bit more. Which ones do you think is more useful? Some of the questions that you can use to answer in that particular question 1 is what, and you can write this in the first person, by the way. It's a reflective, individual reflective log, and you can write this in the first person, that when I talked about, or when I learned about sustainability or climate change, my views was this and my feelings were that, and that linked with my experience of previous changes in weather, and I wondered why that was happening. I've been able to make those connections now. That kind of language is absolutely fine. So what sustainability challenges have I observed in my daily life or community? How do my actions align with my values regarding sustainability? What changes can I make to contribute to a more sustainable future? How do local sustainability efforts connect to global challenges? You don't have to use those questions. I'm just giving you as extra pointers. By using reflective learning, individuals and organizations can drive meaningful change toward a more sustainable future through increased awareness, critical thinking, and proactive action. Okay, all the things that we've done in our carbon literacy training already. Okay, so we've learned about sustainability, we've learned about what the impact is, and we've learned about what to change to be able to minimize that impact as well. Okay, now I'm coming to the 3 frameworks. The first one is called the Gibbs reflective cycle. The second one is called the Kolb's experiential learning cycle. And the third one is called the Moon's levels of learning. Now, overall, you can write roughly between 750 to 1,000 words for the whole coursework 2. So it's not really too many words there. Okay. Now I've given you some indications of how many words can you write for each question. You can see that in the second slide or the third slide, I think. But I'm not going to check really that whether you've written 200 words in the first question or 400 words in the first question, as long as the total word count is no longer than 1,000 words plus or minus 10%. Okay, so you got a range of 900 to 1,100 to fit your answers in. Now, whether you write 400 words for the first question and you write 600 words for the third question, make sure that there is a good enough word count there. Now, remember, I'm not expecting you to do any analysis in question 1. The analysis part goes in question 2. So therefore, keep your question 1 as short as possible. Remember, question 1 is only about 20% of the total marks. So 20, 40, and 40. So your second and third questions could be a little bit more elaborate. Okay. Now let's go on to understanding what these are. Gibbs reflective cycle, there are 6 stages to it. You can see the first stage starts from description. Description, feeling, evaluation, analysis, conclusion, and action plan. All these 6 stages are really important here. Okay. What is description all about? So what happened? You might describe the event, what happened. Key focus is describing the experience or event in detail without judgment or analysis. Example question, who was involved, where and when did it happen? So if you're evaluating, now remember this, you're using one of your reflective frameworks to evaluate your experience of working in a team. Okay, so what happened? How did the team form? What happened to that? What happened next? Then you have, how were your feelings and thoughts about it? What were your thoughts and emotions during and after the event? The key focus here is exploring personal feelings and reactions to gain emotional insight. Example question could be, how did you feel about the experience? What do you think others felt? Okay, so how did you actually empathize with other people's situation? How difficult was it to actually communicate with people? And I believe some of the teams here might have faced that. The third step is about evaluation. What was good or bad about the experience? Think about it in a very objective manner. Do not come with biases, and that's an important thing here. When you talk about reflective frameworks, it might be that you might come with a bias saying that I had a poor experience and therefore I'm going to just write about that poor experience. No, that is not the purpose of this exercise. The purpose of this exercise is to evaluate objectively what happened and think about what can be done differently the next time. So the experience is basically helping you to learn what can you create as an action plan for the next time. And I've given you something at the end here to talk about how that action plan could be done, what that key learning could be. So think about what worked well and what didn't based on outcomes or personal judgment. Example question could be, what were the positive and negative aspects of the experience? Do your analysis, why did that happen? What was it that was missing that actually let that thing happen the way it did? And don't think about that, teams that worked well or teams that didn't work well. Even the teams that had no problems apparently at all, think about what are the strengths and what were the weaknesses, what could we have done differently to make it even better. Breaking down the experience to understand its causes and effects, what theories and knowledge can help explain what happened. Conclusion, and this is not the final step, what could have been done differently? And this is a really, really key important step. This step cannot be reached until you've done the analysis and evaluation of the previous 4 steps. Description, feeling, evaluation, and analysis. And then you come to the conclusion. What could have been done differently? The key focus here is summarizing lessons learned and identifying areas for improvement. What alternative actions could have been taken? What could you have done potentially to think about having your teamwork in a different way? What could you have done differently? Okay, could you have done something at the start when the team allocations were made? So what alternative actions could have been taken? And finally, all that evaluation and analysis and description and everything else must lead you to an action plan. What will you do differently in the future? That's a really key question and the end of a reflection framework. Without this, a reflective activity is incomplete. You must create an action plan. If you were put into the same team, for example, for the same coursework, let's go back to week 4, week 3. And if you're put in the same teams, what would you do differently given all that knowledge and experience that you have now? Develop a concrete plan to apply lessons learned to future experiences. Example question, if the same situation arises, how will you handle it? And I would like you all to open this link here. And this is where some of the knowledge has come from. You can see here, the diagram is also from here. There are 6 stages. Now, what's important here, and that's a good thing, perhaps, maybe from our perspective. It actually gives an example of a group work assignment here. Okay, now of course we don't need to copy and paste it. Please do read it if you want, and maybe frame your own answers based on your own experiences. Okay, so what has a student written here as an example here? For an assessed written group work assignment, my group and I decided to divide the different sections between us so that we only had to research one element each. I believe many of you might have done that. We expected we could just piece the assignment together in the afternoon the day before the deadline, meaning that we didn't have to schedule time to sit and write it together. However, when we sat down, it was clear the sections weren't written in the same writing style. We therefore had to rewrite most of the assignment to make it a coherent piece of work. We had given ourselves enough time before the deadline to individually write our own sections. However, we did not plan a great deal of time to rewrite if something were to go wrong. Therefore, two members of the group had to drop their plans that evening so the assignment would be finished in time for the deadline. That kind of describes me like a good situation there. But think about it. Now, there's nobody mentioned here that so-and-so student never replied to my emails, or I kept contacting the student, but they never responded back to my email, that sort of thing. They're talking about that as a collective. What is the description of the event in the most objective manner? Go on and talk about the feelings. Before we came together and realized we still had a lot of work to do, I was quite happy. Happy is a feeling, and thought we had been smart when we divided the work between us. When we realized we couldn't hand in the assignment like it was, I got quite frustrated. Another feeling word. Remember that. I was certain it was going to work, and therefore I had little motivation to actually do the rewriting. Given that a couple of people from the group had to cancel their plans, I ended up feeling quite guilty. Guilty is another feeling, which actually helped me to work harder in the evening and get the work done faster. Looking back, I'm feeling satisfied. Another feeling that we decided to put in the work. So in that one paragraph, very short paragraph, they talked about happiness. They talked about frustration. What else have they talked about? Guilt, and they talk about satisfaction. Okay, again in a very objective manner without really mentioning about what happened in terms of people and individuals. Okay, do not shift that responsibility to others to say that my group work didn't work because of somebody else. Okay, think about it more objectively, and that's what I want you to do. Evaluation. The thing that we were good at and worked well was the fact that each group member produced good quality work for the agreed deadline. That may or may not be the case. Moreover, the fact that two people from the group canceled plans motivated us to work harder in the evening. That contributed positively to the group's work ethic. The things that clearly didn't work was that we assumed we wrote in the same way, which is again something that people assume, and therefore the overall time plan of the group failed. One of the very common comments that I do, feedback that I provide in group work is that I see 4 standalone paragraphs without any connection to each other. Okay, what has happened in those groups? Maybe well written, but not worked as a team. So you haven't really put it together. Nobody has sat down together to read them all. You basically just divided the work. Everybody has compiled that work together, produced that coursework 1 question 1, and just submitted it. Okay, and I see that a lot. You're talking about some particular topic, and suddenly the topic changes. The quality of writing is still good in those individual paragraphs, but overall it's not cohesive. It doesn't have a proper flow of argument. And that's what you should be really careful about when you're doing your teamwork, that you must give enough time before the deadline to say, okay, let's all finish our work by 4 days or 5 days before the submission so that we can put together everything and then start working on finalizing that and making that as a cohesive whole. Analysis. Now, again, I'm not going to read that long paragraph, but you can read that. I've provided the link in the slides. You can go on and talk about it. Okay. So action plan. When I'm working with the group next time, I will talk to them about what strengths they have. This is easy to do and remember in a first meeting, and also potentially works as an icebreaker if you don't know each other well, which is the case for many first-year students. Next, if we decide to divide work, I will insist that we plan out what we expect from it beforehand. Potentially, I would suggest writing the introduction of our first section together first, so that we have a reference for when we're writing our own parts, etc., etc., etc. Right? So read this paragraph. These are really useful insights. Now, of course, do not fall for copying and pasting from here. It's a very good example. Try and write your own experience. Write about what your own description and feelings are. That's really important here. Okay, so please do that when you're able to do. Right. The second framework is the Kolb's learning cycle, developed by David Kolb in 1984. It's a widely recognized model of experiential learning. It illustrates how individuals learn through a continuous process of experiencing, reflecting, thinking, and applying. So, again, similar kind of stages, but curtailed down to 4 instead of 6. The model is cyclical and emphasizes the importance of integrating theory and practice to enhance understanding and skill development. So, remember, all of them is to be able to evaluate your practice of experiences and then create a plan to do something about it. Okay, so the common thread is that concrete experience, the description about what the experience is, reflective observation, abstract conceptualization, and active experimentation are the 4 stages of Kolb's learning cycle. What does concrete experience mean? Very similar to description and feelings. Learning begins with a direct hands-on experience, completing a task like an assignment, observing an event, or participating in an activity. What happened? Very similar to what we learned in the Gibbs cycle, description and feeling. Okay. Reflective observation, analysis and evaluation, observing and reflecting on the experience, considering what went well or what didn't go so well. Encourages learners to examine their own and others' perspectives. And key question is, what did I notice? What was significant here? The third one is abstract conceptualization, developing theories or concepts to explain the experience. This stage involves linking observations to existing knowledge or creating new ideas. When it comes to teamwork, you might talk about Tuckman's stages of team working. And key question is, what can I learn from this? And how does this connect to what I know already? And finally, active experimentation, more like applying that to in an action plan. Applying new knowledge or concepts to real life situations or practice. What is that new knowledge? The knowledge that you've gained by reflecting on your experience. Testing theories and observing the outcomes leads to further experiences. And the key question is, how can I apply this in the future? So what can I do to be able to make my future better if I was to do the same kind of exercise? And the final framework that we have is the Moon's levels of learning. The Moon's levels of learning is a framework developed by Jennifer Moon to describe the progression of learning from surface level understanding to deeper transformative knowledge. Now, this is a really important thing from your degree perspective, okay? Not just from this module, but broadly speaking. Surface learning and deep learning. What you're doing essentially throughout your 4 years is that you're gaining knowledge about different things. You'll be learning many, many modules. Everybody does 23 modules throughout a 4-year degree period, okay? And you then end up in a final big dissertation at the end. If you carry on doing surface learning, then your marks will always reflect those. It'll always be that I've learned this, I've written this definition down, I've got this, 2 sentences about it, and that's about it. But deep learning is, how do you understand multiple perspectives? How do you look at multiple sources of information? How do you find journal articles and books and everything else and collect that information, analyze and synthesize it, and create something of your own? By the time you get to your higher years, you will be judged on that. You'll be marked on those things more than simply description. So in the first year, what we're expecting you to do is to recollect and recall information. So you basically gathered information and then you've kind of recalled it and described it in your assignments. I'm not really looking at the critical, deep understanding of things in the first year. But if I was to teach you again in the 3rd or the 4th year, my expectation and the assessment would be totally different. I'd be looking at critical discussions. I'd be looking at journal articles and books and multiple of them. How do you use them and summarize them and synthesize them and produce a report of your own? And that is a really important difference, okay? Surface learning and deep learning and transformative knowledge. It focuses on how learners process information and emphasizes the need for critical reflection to achieve meaningful learning. Moon's model is especially relevant in education, personal development, and professional training. Okay, there are 5 levels of learning in Moon's model. I'm not going to go into the details. You can read about them, but they're very similar once again, with slight changes. Noticing, making sense, making meaning. Noticing would be observing the event, being aware of what's happening, making sense of the whole thing and why did that happen, what was happening. Making meaning, connecting new information to their existing knowledge, forming a deeper understanding, working with that meaning, and transformative learning, the highest level where learners experience a significant shift in their understanding, values, or perspective. I believe you will see those levels of learning as you progress from year 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. Okay. Now, what you need to do at this stage is to think about which of these frameworks is useful for me to use. I believe a majority of you would use the Gibbs framework. Okay, that's the most straightforward one, and that actually kind of allows you to do that reflective evaluation of your experience of team working. And why is that important? Because the second question is evaluating about your experience of team working. So there is a direct connection between them. I'm not saying that you should not use any other kind of frameworks. You can use any one of the three, but I believe the Gibbs one would be maybe more suitable. Have a discussion with your seminar tutor if you want to have a chat about that. If you want to have a chat about this with me, I'm happy to do that as well. So reflection, experiential learning, and iterative process going back and forth is what is the key principles. Okay, so that's all about the three frameworks. You can use any one of them. Question number 2 is about using any one of the frameworks described above. Reflect upon the process your group went through in writing the carbon literacy assignment. You should reflect upon your own role within the group and how successfully you worked together as a team, or not successfully worked together as a team. That's up to about 450 words. Now, what is important here is I've provided some useful points. Using any one of the frameworks, reflect upon your experience of working as a team for coursework 1. Go through each stage of your team working process. Do this individually, please, from the start, and then describe experiences in each stage briefly. Create an action plan. If you were to write the same assignment again with the same group, what would you do differently this time? Just a description is okay. You don't have to really create like a word file plan or something. Important note, the most important note here, do not make this personal. Do not provide names of individuals in your assignments. Okay, you may use team member A, team member B, or 1, 2, 3, 4, or give them a label or something like that. Do not provide names of individuals. The important point is to be able to reflect on your experiences and learn from them, so you may do something differently the next time and in future team assignments. And that's really an important thing. Now, finally, what can you do to be able to understand if you had this knowledge before, and there is a deliberately, I've actually put this at the end because you can use this now to create something for you in the future. So the 5 stages of Tuckman's model of team development. The first one is forming. When the team comes together, members don't know each other. They're introducing each other about this. The group comes together and members begin to understand their roles and objectives. This stage is characterized by politeness. Everybody is nice to each other, uncertainty, and dependence on the leader for direction. Okay. However, the second stage comes, which is storming, which is when the conflicts arise. Any team, before they perform, must go through a storming process at a high intensity, low intensity, it doesn't matter. Conflict arises as group members assert their opinions, roles are challenged, and differences surface. This stage is often marked by tension and competition. Communication breaks down here. People don't want to talk to each other. People don't want to respond to each other. But then a successful team will be one that goes to the next stage, which is norming. Create rules. What are the norms of your team? Okay, the very first thing that I would expect you to do the next time, have a team meeting as soon as possible. Number 1, create a code of conduct that we'll meet every week on Tuesday, 4 p.m. It'll be in the library or on WhatsApp or wherever it is. We'll divide the task. We'll make a note of what tasks did we discuss. How did we plan things? What is it that we need to do before the next meeting arises on Tuesday next week? Set of norms is really important. Develop cohesion and agree on shared goals. Members start to work more effectively together in the third stage. Unless you've gone through these 3 stages, you will not be able to go to the 4th stage, which is performing. Okay, your performance depends on how well you've gone through the first 3 stages. Okay, the group reaches a stage of high productivity with members collaborating effectively to achieve goals. This is the stage of peak performance. Now, what you've done here is you've actually sat together and said, can you tell us what are the barriers for you not being able to attend? What is it that the group can do to support you in that? Somebody may have a shift, somebody may have a job, something else. Can we accommodate you? How do we do this? These are all part of making your norms for the group. And there's a final 5th stage that they actually added in 1977. The original model was created in 1965, but this 5th stage was done in 1977, and that was called adjourning. A formal parting of ways with the group when the task is complete. When your project is complete, the team has to be dismantled formally. So maybe having a meeting to say, the positive, the negative, the strengths and weaknesses. You might want to still do that. You already know what the themes are for Coursework 1, and you might want to carry on that adjourning stage. But remember, this is important from that point of view. You can use that as your action plan for your question number 2, as to what is it that you can do. Hold on, everybody, we're not finished yet, another 2 minutes. And finally, question 3, reflect on how learning in this module will help you in being successful in the rest of your degree studies and future employability. You must think about this in your own degree context, and that's really important. Some of the points to ponder: there is no structure to this answer. This is a paragraph or a couple of paragraphs that you're writing about. There's no framework, no theories. It's your experience of what you think. What can you think about here? Mention, first of all, what degree you're studying. You can write about in the first person, I am studying a BA Honors in Risk Management or Business Management or something else. Identify the skills required in your sector to be successful. Make a linkage with that subject area and ESG. And finally, how can the skills learned about sustainability help you to progress in your degree and future employability successfully? Okay. Now, again, as I said, as long as the total word count is kind of around 1,000, it's okay how you divide the 3 sections. You might want to write this section slightly less, maybe 350 words, 300 words, but think about where do you want to spend your most time. Okay. Any questions, let me know and I'll be happy to answer. I provided some references here, so please have a look at them. And I'll see you next week. Thank you very much, everybody.